In a break from our usual videos, we decided to sit down with our director, Jon Cooper, to give us a more in-depth look at the research and development tax relief.
So Jon, before we move on to the more detailed aspects of it all, could you explain what R&D Tax Relief is?
R&D Tax Relief is a tax incentive that came in initially in about the year 2000, which has been spread out now to essentially cover all businesses and offer tax relief either in the way of a tax credit payment or a reduction in corporation tax in situations where a company is undertaking any innovative activity. And what is innovative? It's when you're creating or making or doing something that's original and that cannot just be purchased, as a boilerplate version online.
When you say the word innovative, from a business sense, what does this really mean? Which companies would you say could claim?
I think one of the weaknesses in how R&D tax relief has been promoted by HMRC is that they have allowed a perception that innovative means some massive project that's going to design a new pharma product or a new type of plane. Really, innovative is anything and everything that's original. If you take something like, to use one of my favourite examples, craft beer, you're designing a new style and flavour of beer, that is innovation. That is covered in the scope of R&D tax credits. Looking at Cooper for ourselves, last year we developed an online portal for our clients, which is still in the testing phase, but that again is innovation. It's something we've created with our own sort of knowledge and experience, and that qualifies for R&D tax credits.
Great, that's really interesting. So it's not just your usual technological or scientific company that can claim R&D. What would be the process for the client claiming R&D tax relief?
For a client who comes to us to discuss R&D tax credits, there are a few quite key things to discuss. The first thing is we need to review what they're doing to see if it genuinely does qualify. We have a very good relationship with HMRC that we want to maintain. We don't want to sell false promises to potential clients. So if they come forward and present something, typically like, for instance, a refacing of a website, that is not allowable for R&D tax credits, and we'll be upfront and tell them that. If we get to a situation where we've had the initial conversation and there is an element of R&D work that's clearly been going on, it's then having the more detailed discussions and evaluation of the financial information. Now, there are a couple of important points to make in and around that. One is there's no requirement for them to move their accountancy across to us. It's a standalone service, and it obviously is easier if we're looking at their accountancy affairs, but it's not a prerequisite. It could stand outside that, and indeed we have clients for whom we just do the R&D piece. The second important thing is there is a misconception that R&D is going to take a lot of time of the business owner and the team to actually put together and collate all the information that's needed to support the claim. Our experience is essentially that is not the case. We say genuinely to people, if you give us a day of your team's time, that's all we're going to need to be able to process the R&D claim, along with access to their financial information. And a day's time could equate to 10,000, 100,000, 200,000 or more of actual cash coming back into the business. So, got to be worth it.
That's great, Jon. Thank you. For clients who have conducted R&D in the past, are they able to claim this R&D tax credit back?
Unfortunately, there is a limited window, which is effectively 2 years. So if you've got to the end of your financial year, you can claim back for the previous financial year as well, but that's the scope of how far back you can go. Unfortunately, there are businesses that have just missed the boat, and there's no way for them to recover that the return on that investment through R&D tax credits. In the spring, going to be launching R&D Matters, which is going to be a bespoke service that's going to focus on R&D for clients. And really to re-emphasise the fact that this is not a requirement for us to undertake the whole accounting of the business. We need access to the financial information because in collating the claim, it's really two components. It's looking at what's been spent on R&D in terms of generally employee costs and subcontractor costs and a few other things, and in writing the project reports to show HMRC what the R&D activity that's been taken is effectively. Another important point here, which I think is often missed, is there's no necessity for the innovation to have been a success to claim R&D. A lot of projects obviously go into testing phase and are then are canned. That's still allowable to recover the tax credit on those costs you've incurred on unsuccessful innovation as well as successful innovation.
That's really interesting because I would have assumed that you would need to be, for the project to be successful or the product that you are creating. So that's great to know that it doesn't need to be. Why do you believe not very many people or companies are claiming that we potentially believe could claim? Do you think it comes across as almost too good to be true?
I mean, the figures are staggering. Looking at the last published year of stats from HMRC, it looks like there were only 26,000 and odd claims made in that particular year by SME businesses. Given that we've got 10 million SME limited company businesses, and unfortunately R&D tax credits are only open to limited companies, just suggests there are a vast number of companies who are just missing out on this. Why they're missing out? I think there are a number of factors. HMRC have done a poor job in explaining it in a very user-friendly way. The way a lot of their materials are written does give the impression that this is for big ticket innovation when that isn't the case. Companies are worried if they claim it, what will happen down the line if HMRC come back and challenge it when the money potentially has already been spent. And they're worried about the disruption on their business. And what we are looking to do is allay their fears on all of those things. We're here for the long journey. Our company's been around now for 13 years, and we intend to be here for another 30, 40, 50, 100 years. We're there to support the clients and make the process as painless for them as is possible whilst meeting the parameters that HMRC require. We have an ethical approach. We will not put forward a claim if we don't believe it's sustainable. And we have a transparent approach. All the information we send to HMRC is made available to the clients. A lot of companies in this area make their reporting to HMRC, cover it in a mystique to make it, I guess, sound more complicated than it really is. And to a certain extent, that's a negative impact on people to go through the process. Our top tip is, if you're starting out as a business, HMRC offer an advanced assurance on R&D. Basically means if you put forward the projects you intend to do and the innovations you intend to make, HMRC will review it, and given that they accept that that is innovation and that you continue down the road of doing what you say you're going to do, that effectively guarantees your R&D tax credit claim for the first 3 years of business. So it takes all that pressure of collating the non-financial bit of the claim away for 3 years. And so it's then just attributing the figures that to support the innovation that went into that innovation. And it's a good time for startup business to do that when, by definition, they're at the start and they're usually under much less time pressure than at the end of the first year when presumably they're hopefully in an MVP beta testing phase where there's much more demands on people's times.
So carrying on from the discussion about startups, we mentioned a government cap in our video on R&D. Could you tell us a little more about that?
In the budget that was in last December, the Chancellor made a fairly surprising announcement and I think fundamentally flawed announcement on R&D tax credits, which is returning to the old metric of how you could claim the relief, which is driven by the amount of PAYE you as a business are paying each year, and there's a cap of 3 times that PAYE payment as being your R&D allowable amount. Now, this seems to run against the spirit of enterprise that the British government has been trying to create, but with not just R&D tax credits, but with the SEIS and EIS investment and patent box and grants and a whole a whole infrastructure of support for innovative businesses. We work with a lot of startups, and if you're a startup business, what you don't want to do is commit yourselves to a PAYE payroll at the start. You want to use every pound as effectively as you can to develop whatever it is you're looking to develop. So we see this as a very narrow-minded view, and basically driven by one case of fraud that happened in 2016, which HMRC have used as their case law for why this change is needed. I don't think one bad apple should be allowed to change the whole scheme, and we at Cooper Faure feel very strongly about this. We started a parliamentary petition and would encourage anyone to sign it to support innovative businesses and people's ideas to succeed by continuing this wonderful support system that the government have created, the governments of all parties have created over the years. You know, we have a lot of businesses coming to start up in the UK just because of these support networks, and in the socio-economic times we're in, anything that's encouraging a business to come to the UK has got to be supported and not penalised.